Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy and welcome to a brand new review. Yes, the time has come. It is time to talk about 28 Years Later, one of the most anticipated films of the year, at least from my standpoint, for a lot of horror fans looking for the sequel to 28 Days and also 28 Weeks Later, the return of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland working together. There is so much to talk about. My name is Tate. I'm going to be your host for today. And yeah, like I said, so much to talk about with this film. I've just come back from the cinema just now, so it's very, very fresh in my mind having watched it. But we, of course, want to create a discussion around this. We want to see what other people think about this film as well. So please put down what you thought about this film in the comments right there, right now. Was it what you expected? Did it meet up to the hype? Are you excited about the following films that are going to be coming out? As there have been two other sequels announced as well for this, with the Bone Temple coming out early next year. So we don't have to wait too long for the next installment of this film franchise. But this is, the first 28 years, days, months film, 28 something later film since 2007. So we've waited a long time for the sequel. So please put down in the comments what you thought about this. And please go onto our socials. The Linktree link will be down, scrolling across at the moment. And it is also in the description. So let's get into the meat of this straight away. We're going to structure this in the same way we did with the other reviews. So I'm going to go through it bit by bit and talk about what exactly was good about the film, what parts that maybe I didn't enjoy as much or thought was a bit an interesting creative decision, should we say, and what I really liked about this film. This is a spoiler review as well. So we're going to be going not straight away into the spoilers. I'll be talking about production first and everything like that. But when we get into the story of it and where it moves on to the sequels, we will be doing more spoiler-based things on that. So the IMDb plot synopsis for this. A group of survivors of the rage virus live on a small island. When one of the group leaves the island on a mission into the mainland, he discovers secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only infected, but other survivors. And I'd say that's a very generic way of kind of describing this film. I don't think it completely captures what the film does. I mean, the IMDb plot synopsis of most films doesn't quite do it all the time. But I would say there's a lot more to this film than what is kind of written there, which is always the case. It's just enough to draw you in. There aren't really any memories of the film because it's just happened. It's just been there. But I do have some really interesting memories of the build up to this film. So we've previously talked about 28 Days and Weeks on the channel, and I like both films. I prefer 28 Days, but I think the opening scene to 28 Weeks is one of the best in the franchise. But all the way kind of growing up through school and through various different things, I heard talk about 28 months or 28 years or whatever it was going to be as a sequel. And this culminated in that perfect era of YouTube where there were fake trailers for every single film coming out and fake set photos and stuff like that. And I wasn't fully engrossed, but at the same time, I was like, it was on my radar of like, okay, I've seen a fake trailer. I've seen a few things. When's this film actually coming out? No, it's all fake kind of thing. And that's because this film has been in development hell since 2007. They originally had plans to immediately do a sequel after 28 weeks, depending on its financial output. But it just ended up in development hell, purely based on the fact that no one could decide where the rights should go. There are three elements to that. It's Danny Boyle, it's Alex Garland, and then it's the studio. And it just couldn't change hands. It couldn't move away from that producing setup, and it couldn't move away from what Danny Boyle wanted, what Alex Garland wanted. Everyone wanted a sequel. They just couldn't decide on how it would go about and what would happen for it. So pretty much since 2007, it's been stuck in development hell, gone through a few different script rights changes and various different things. It only became 28 years at some point in 2022 when the small little whispers started to become a bit louder. Boyle was brought back to direct with Garland writing, and at the same time they announced that actually it would be a trilogy of sequels. So we got Bone Temple, which is meant to be out in 2026, January, I believe, as well. So really, really soon. And also a final film in the series with Nia DaCosta, who directed The Marvels and Candyman. She is going to be doing the second film, with Boyle coming back for the third film to direct the final one out of the three. Other people brought on board from the previous film. So, of course, Garland and Boyle given, producing and executive rights and stuff like that. Same as well goes for Cillian Murphy, who is rumored and has been seen on set of The Bone Temple. So at some point in the trilogy, he will be coming back as well. But spoiler alert, not in this film. Ha ha ha. But anyway, that's kind of all the production that came into this film. Apart from that, they used some very, very interesting filming techniques for this film. Of course, in the previous films, we've had the original film was filmed using a kind of handheld camcorder camera. The second film was more of kind of a full Hollywood setup with actual kind of proper filming cameras and the whole, expensive setup and everything like that. This film was shot on an iPhone 15 Max. In fact, this film was shot on multiple iPhone 15 Maxes, made into this weird kind of 360 rig kind of thing to get some of the interesting shots of the film. They also used drones for a lot of the shots. They used the use of POV, which was done using camera rigs set up with the iPhones. Very, very interesting. It gives it that almost not home film feel, but at the same time not... It doesn't feel studio or as studio. It feels a bit more grounded, which I think is as far as you can go for a modern day filming setup, having it in full HD without it being upscaled from a previous, camera that's probably no longer used. Of course, we lose all of that handheld kind of graininess that comes with it that would have been very 2002. But we still get that. You watch the film and it just doesn't quite feel like you're watching like a film that you would, just a standard film that you would watch. It has that small little kind of tint to it that makes it seem like it is still handheld, or it is still, putting you there at the scene, which was a nice kind of step away from 28 Weeks. It's the one thing that I would say didn't work with 28 Weeks, it going full big action blockbuster, whereas this film draws it back again, and draws it back to its at least filmmaking roots using kind of handheld camera setups, whether that is the modern version of that or not. It's very, very interesting, the different shots that are used in this film as well, because they use a lot of close-up, they use a lot of interesting, almost Matrix-styled kind of 360 shots. They also use a lot of landscape shots and a lot of, drone shots and everything like that. A lot of fast takes, fast editing, visceral scenes and everything like that to keep you on the edge of your seat and to keep you kind of, in almost the nightmare scenario that they've ended up in. But it does stray very far away from what the other two films did from a story-making perspective. Of course, it's still a zombie film, or as they like to call it, an infected film. But it feels more like a drama film. It feels more like a coming-of-age drama film, where the focus is placed back down onto our lead character, who's Spike, who's a 12-year-old boy. He's trying to find a doctor on the mainland to save his mum, is the best way of putting it. His mum, played by Jodie Comer, and Spike, played by Alfie Williams. I'll get onto the acting performances in a bit, but as far as the story is concerned, it really is a coming-of-age story. We see Spike going out on his first hunt with his father, played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson. We see him kind of losing his innocence by getting his first kill, but also watching, just things fall apart around him. Whether it's the falsehood of him being brought back as a hero when actually he didn't do anything, to seeing his father cheat, to seeing his mum ill, to seeing a solution and having to do it himself. I wouldn't draw comparisons too close, but I was getting Come and See vibes from this film. Not as visceral and definitely not as horror-staken as Come and See, as far as, one of the most harrowing coming-of-age films you could possibly ever imagine, seeing the eyes of a child through war. But this is seeing the eyes of a child, or seeing, through the eyes of a child at an apocalypse. Having to grow up, having to be that person, to be that sturdy rock, having to, look after his mum, kill zombies by himself and survive, and go out there and try and just, find a way to save her. That loss of innocence is a massive thing in this story, culminating all the way up until the final scene where he doesn't shake anymore when he pulls back that bow. He isn't scared anymore because he's seen everything, he's gone through everything. He's had that whole experience with death, he's had that whole experience with everything around him. And I gotta say, as far as acting's concerned, Alfie Williams I've been talking about various different acting performances this year and praising child actors for how well they have been, performing across film and TV this year. Adolescence is still my number one favorite, like, TV show, film, whatever of the year, thing I've seen of the year. It's still my favorite performance of the year. But at the same time, I think we've come a long way from terrible child acting performances. I think nowadays we can get really mature performances with actors such as Alfie, who's only 14 in this film. Like, he's playing a 12-year-old, but he's 14 years old. He's going up against Jodie Comer. He's going up against Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's going up against Ralph Fiennes, and he is holding his own on screen with these people. In his first major film performance, he had a small role in His Dark Materials. He had a very small role in another short film. Other than that, nothing he's done before, and he's a lead character, the lead character in a Danny Boyle film. Not just that, in a Danny Boyle sequel to 28 Days Later. That is absolutely phenomenal. And he plays that young innocence so well. He plays that sturdy, battle-aged kid at the very end so well as well. You see that develop throughout the film. You see him start to kind of go from that shaky kid to understanding the world is very different to how he saw it. He saw his dad as a hero before. He then sees his dad cheat. He sees his dad lie about his own accomplishments, his own achievements. He sees his dad scared, and suddenly it changes his entire perception on the world. He sees his mum ill, and he knows he has to do something. So he puts aside all of his fears and he travels onto the mainland. You believe that performance all the way through. It is absolutely phenomenal to see. And I would go watch this film again just to see that performance again, because that is the heart of this film. It's carried by Alfie Williams and the character of Spike. It's carried by the way he interacts with the other characters in the world when he meets up with Edwin Riding, played by Eric Sundqvist, a soldier who comes in with the whole gun-ho brutality, all infected must die no matter what, kill it at the source kind of type. And he's also able to balance that across Jodie Comer's character of Isla, who, is going through interesting mental episodes, is clearly ill and needs medical attention. Even in the scenes where he comes across Dr. Kelson, played by Ralph Fiennes, for the first time, you start to see that balance, that calming figure, something in his life that he's never had before, a person who isn't mad, who's been called mad by the outside world, but is fully at peace with memento mori. Remember that, death has to happen at some point. And memento mori, remember that we must love as well. It's a beautiful message woven into this film, which does have horror elements. It does have the gore. It does have zombies ripping people apart. But I'd say the horror comes from the tension in this film. Like, the entire film, it feels like you're being stalked, and that comes from the alpha zombies, this new breed of zombies that doesn't go around eating people, but takes people's spines out. It's more of a dominance kind of thing. And being stalked by these creatures throughout the entire film gives you that unease, that sense of nervousness. It does fall more into the thriller category with a few horror elements thrown in, but this really is at its heart a coming-of-age story, and it's all built around Spike. And what I've been saying in this bit of a ramble is that his performance is well beyond his years, and I feel like he needs recognition for this role in particular, because what a phenomenal performance. Other characters who are notable, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character of Jamie, I'm sure that he'll become a bigger character in the sequels as well. His character is, that strong macho type, that very broken alcoholic, wants to care but doesn't know how to deal with the situation kind of type. That in the sequel he's going to go looking after Alfie. He's going to try and find him out on the mainland. And that he'll have regrets on letting Isla go, on being caught cheating, and all of those things. You can see the regret in his eyes when he slaps Spike for, threatening to, to tell his mum basically about the affair that he's having, or even the moment where he closes the knife and hands it back when Spike actually holds his ground and says, "You leave my family alone," and, takes ownership of it. These are really, quite strong scenes of good acting thrown into the film. But of course, people come to watch this film because they want to see a horror film. The horror elements of the film are woven in. There's nothing too starkingly horrorish about this film apart from the bits of blood and gore, the alphas that come around. We don't see too many people getting, eaten by zombies in this film other than the opening sequence, which takes us back to day one, with a very weird callback scene with Teletubbies, which I'm going to talk about when we talk about the ending. But this film is more about kind of how zombie films can develop or how they can go across. You know, we've talked on the channel a lot about The Last of Us, or at least George has, and how that handles zombies or infected in its own universe. How back before 28 Days Later, the zombies were slow, they were plodding, they were menial, they were out for brains, they weren't out for anything else, maybe a bit of flesh. There wasn't much kind of, purpose for them other than out to kill. After 28 days, they became the fast zombies, they became the rabid, they became the chaos, almost driven into their plot lines and everything like that of all the films they were put through. We had The Walking Dead, which was the kind of slow, menial, slow burn zombie pickup, which, became a global phenomenon and then immediately dropped that ball. And now we're back to 28 years where the zombies are kind of like The Last of Us. They are there. They are part of the main thread of the plot. They're in the background. But once again, we're back onto the human characters in the world and how they survive and how they deal with things. This film deals with a lot of themes of loss of innocence. It deals with how to deal with death. And mainly, the key point of this is isolation. Spike's character lives on an isolated island at the start. Jodie Comer's character Isla is isolated within her own mind. She can't get her thoughts out because there's clearly something wrong, which we find out towards the end is possibly brain cancer or something like that, and she does die because of it. And we deal with Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is isolated in the fact that he doesn't know how to deal with the situations, and Dr. Kelson, who is isolated through his own means, living at the Bone Temple, living his own quiet life, and remembering death, knowing how to live and be happy and be okay with that. And even with the smaller characters like Ed Thing Riding and Eric Sundqvist, he is the last soldier in his unit. That's his own form of isolation. So isolation is such a massive theme to this film. The alphas hunting solo and everything like that. It's amazing. It's brilliant. Because, within these zombie films, there's always one character who gets left alone. To have the entire film based around that concept and have these characters kind of journeying through their own journeys throughout the world, but left in isolation, is fantastic. I really enjoyed that. The music of this film was very different, though. We've moved away from John Murphy's score, and now we're on to the Young Fathers, who are a Scottish hip-hop, soul, lo-fi band. There were some parts of the score which really hit. They have a lot of gospel elements. They have a lot of tense build-up music. No big guitar hook lines. No In a House and a Heartbeat, which is a shame that it's no longer attached to the film. Maybe they'll bring it back in later installments, but a large use of violins to build the tension, as is standard in modern horror. And it felt very impactful in the quiet moments. It complemented the cinematography really well, with it being kind of a quiet, quaint island and a quiet, quaint forest that a lot of the film is set in. But it worked as a score. It is very far away from the previous ones in the franchise, but at the same time, it worked in its own merit. It worked in isolation, hilariously talking about isolation. As far as the impact of the film, it had a budget of 60 million, which is far and away the highest budget that this film has had so far. It's still not a massive budget for a big kind of Hollywood film nowadays, or a big blockbuster film nowadays. And responses so far have been mixed, but mostly positive. A lot of people talking about it not feeling like it kind of fully connects to the franchise, but at the same time, it's a quiet kind of, reminder of life and to remember death, and everything like that. I really enjoyed it, at least. As far as notable scenes are concerned, the opening scene of the film with Teletubbies in the church, which is a very interesting sentence to say, which links to the ending of the film with Jack O'Connell's character, who's clearly having a fantastic year with multiple different villain performances. And I guess now, I don't know if he's going to be a good guy or a villain guy, but running a Teletubby death cult to kill the zombies is a very, very interesting way of introducing a character. And wraps up the mystery of the start of the film with who's the person with the cross. The zombie baby scene, the zombie baby being born and them having to look after it, and the fact that there is an infected baby now into the world who is also not infected and will have to be looked after. I wonder if they'll touch on that in the sequels as well. Chased by the Alpha back to the mainland as well. That entire scene with the beautiful northern lights and the stars in the sky and everything like that, being chased all the way back by the Alpha. Fantastic build up, fantastic music, looked stunning, looked beautiful. And then my favorite scene in the film was actually Ralph Fiennes talking about death in the Bone Temple part. Even the part where Isla as a character goes quietly into the night through choice, and he comes back with the skull and says, "We must remember death, we must remember love," and place the skull in the temple. It shows a character that is fully connected to the world, and his speech in that way it connected, it hit. I wasn't expecting to get emotional over a film like this, so that would be at least my favorite scene in the film. But of course, I want to know what your thoughts were at home. I've talked a bit about horror films in the channel before. I'm not a massive horror film fan. I like films with horror elements without horror being the key component of the film. So it's really interesting to come into this film thinking it was going to be an outright horror film, really leaning into that horror side as the Boots trailer and everything like that showed. But instead, I was left with quite a profound, thought-provoking, almost soliloquy purely about, the themes of loss of innocence and a coming-of-age movie. I didn't expect that, set in this universe, to come through. And of course, we've got 2 more sequels on the way as well. So I do wonder what direction they take them in, whether they go harder into the horror elements with, of course, Nia DaCosta coming in. She's done Candyman. So, whether we go harder into those kind of horror elements, or whether we stick to kind of the themes that Boyle has put forward from the films so far, and we go with that route. It'd be very interesting to see. But anyway, I want to see your thoughts. So please, of course, leave a like on the video, share this video and all of that. And we'll create a discussion in the comment section with that as well. And of course, go and follow us on all of our socials. The Linktree link is down in the description. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd as well. So that is all down in the description there. And of course, go onto our Redbubble store where you can pick up some Cinema Savvy merch, as always. But thank you for watching our review of 28 Years Later. I quite enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it in the way that I did, but I enjoyed the film at least. So thank you ever so much for watching this review, and we'll see you on the next one.